This is Andi Purewal, Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'm here at the Matchroom Gym and I'm delighted to be joined by the head chief, Tony Sims. Tony, firstly, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, Andy. Good to see you down here, mate.
You too, mate. I'm glad we're doing this in the only warm room in the gym because it's absolutely Baltic downstairs.
Yeah, I know we've got to sort the eating out. It's you see it on earlier and then it knocked everything out. So we've got some eaters on, but the electrician will be here Monday to sort it all out for us.
I'm sure Eddie can foot the bill for that one, Tony. But yeah, obviously I've come down today. I've just saw John Ryder have some sparring with Dan Aziz. Just talking about John's preparations ahead of February 12th for his bout with Danny Jacobs.
Yeah, I was just talking about that just now. Yeah, all the preparation's gone really well, and he's just on schedule now. Obviously, he's got another 2 hard weeks in front of him before fight week, but yeah, it's all gone well, the camp, and you know, I think John's just looking forward now until the week of the fight, and obviously getting in the ring on the night.
Tony, is this very much, you know, if John's unsuccessful, the end of the road for him, or is there still opportunities beyond this? Is this just one which he has to win if he wants to continue with his career?
It's hard to say because obviously the fight ain't happened, but it's difficult to say things like that. Obviously, if he suffers a devastating defeat, you could probably say that. If he suffers like a tight decision loss, then it's hard to say really, because obviously he's a big underdog in the fight. You know, you look at the fight on paper and see what Jacobs has done in his career. You know, and he obviously is a massive favourite, but he's coming to the UK. Danny Jacobs coming to the UK, and so he's coming to John's home territory. So that gives, you know, that gives John a little bit more in the odds going his way. And as I say, all the camp's gone well, you know, and let's just, like talking about decisions there, let's just hope that it don't go to any tight decisions, because it seems like every time there's a tight decision or a close fight, it never goes John's way. So, you know, John knows that he's going to get in there and win the fight well, and you know, he's been unlucky, and he's been so unlucky in the past with the decisions that he's had against him, you know, and let's just hope it can go his way this time.
With Danny Jacobs, despite his past successes last time out against Gabe Rosado, he didn't wow those who tuned in and watched, whether it have been kind of the limited people who were allowed to attend or those who watched it over the zone. What version are you expecting? How have you prepared for Danny Jacobs?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about his performance against Rosado, and as you say there, he boxed in front of an empty stadium. You know, so you don't know how that affected him, because obviously whenever he fights, you know, he's obviously involved in big fights, world title fights, you know, so but you can't really look at that one performance and say, oh, you know, Danny Jacobs has slipped back, because that can happen to anyone. John's performance in America a year ago wasn't a great performance himself, do you know what I mean? So, you know, you can't look at that, and you got to think, you know, you're fighting the best of Danny Jacobs, and you know, and the best of Danny Jacobs, he's a class act. Me and John was lucky enough to be ringside for his fight when he fought Canelo. Obviously, John fought on the undercard of that, and we watched the fight, you know, and it was a good fight. Him and Canelo, obviously, he got beat, but you know, he was in the fight in every round, and that just shows you the class of him. You know, defensively smart, and you know, he can bang. So, as I say, John's obviously a big underdog in the fight.
Is John feeling any pressure at all, knowing as to what could be at stake? A win here, you'd imagine he closes in on that world title scene. I mean, he's had a very difficult kind of time of things since the Callum Smith fight. We was looking at the David Morrell fight, then Dimitri Bivol got mentioned. He was potentially in line to step in to face Canelo if Billy Joe had pulled out. There was a lot of things for him to be excited about, just none of it came off. when he reflects on it all and he goes into this Danny Jacobs fight, is he feeling the pressure to make the most of this opportunity?
I don't think he's feeling any pressure, because he's been a pro fighter for so many years now. He don't feel the pressure of it. Obviously, like you say there's been a lot of talk about a lot of opportunities happening for John in world title fights, and as you're saying, he was like a reserve for Canelo fight. So I'm a great believer in things are meant to happen for a reason, and the thing is, John's landed, Eddie Hearn's landed a big fight here for John, and Eddie has tried, to land the big fights for John. They just ain't materialised, and this is a big opportunity for John, and I think that if John becomes victorious in this fight, then he's put himself on a massive platform, because I know Canelo wants to come to the UK and fight in the UK, but he's got no one to fight here because he's basically fought everybody. So obviously if John beats Danny Jacobs, then he puts himself in a fantastic position and a reason why Canelo would come over here. And that's the carrot that's dangling in front of him. So he's giving it all in training, as he always does, and he'll give it all on the night, as he always does as well. But we'll have to see. It's an hard fight, and we'll just have to see on the night. And that is all on the night. Boxing is all on the night, and hopefully his preparation and his game plan he comes through.
Felix Cash, another one of your charges on that undercard. Spoke to him earlier. He's finally got an opponent. Just waiting for, I think, all that just to be rubber stamped. Though, just talk to me about that. The frustrations to get Felix an opponent. I know he was looking at the Signani fight for the European title, but to eventually end up where you are now.
Yeah, Felix has got a world-ranked opponent. If you ask me to pronounce his name, I can't pronounce it. But he's Russian and he's ranked really high in the world, and he's unbeaten. But it's the sort of fight that, Felix wants. I think, we know that Felix is a world level fighter, and he's been made mandatory for Signani's title. So, he'll go into this fight against another unbeaten fighter, and hopefully he comes through this fight. Then the Europeans next, and then really he's properly on the world scene then, because he'll be very highly ranked in the world. So his next two fights are planned, and he's just got to do the fighting and get the wins. And I really rate Felix Cash. I think he's got everything in his armoury. He can punch, he's smart with his boxing, he's tough, he's a rough guy, and I do really believe that he can mix it with the best of them. But obviously he's got a difficult opponent next, and his next opponent, and another unbeaten opponent, and from Russia, and we all know the Russians are good fighters, and this fella's been a good amateur, and he's unbeaten as a pro. So it's going to be another difficult fight, but I believe Felix can come through.
Tony, Felix has said to me on a couple of occasions he'd be more than happy to face the winner of Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Williams if that opportunity could be presented. Is that conversation you've had with Eddie at all? Get through February 12th, and even though the European title's there, Felix said he'd step aside from that to face a Eubank Jr. Williams winner. Yeah,
I think, like you're saying there, like Felix is he's ready to announce himself on world level. And I wouldn't fear of putting him in with Chris Eubank or Liam Williams. And as I said, I really rate Felix Cash, but obviously he's got a difficult opponent next that he's coming into. So it's just one fight at a time, really. And I think the winner of Chris Eubank and Liam Williams will probably get the world title shot at WBA against Murata. I think the winner of that will fight Murata, but I think Felix will be highly ranked and pretty close behind them two. So it'd be nice if one of them picked up the world title and then Felix become mandatory, and that's what can happen this year. You know, there's a lot of things that can happen with Felix's career this year. You know, and he's trained hard for this fight in this camp, and you know, he's looking good, and I'm excited about him.
Away from him, young Conor Benn returned to the gym. I think it might have been yesterday. I've just caught him today though, back after obviously some time away in Dubai. What is going on with Conor, Tony? Yes, you know, he seems to be Maurice Hooker. He's the most likely out of Guerrero and Adrian Broner. Is that what you expect to see next? You know, Conor versus Maurice Hooker?
Well, you know, we're hearing a lot of names bounding around, but I'm not sure yet. I mean, Charlie's been talking to Eddie, and you know, I know Eddie's trying hard to get a world level fighter from America over here. So I'll just leave that up to Eddie to sort out, and. You know, he's just starting back into the gym. He's got the date of April the 23rd. So we know the date. So he won't start camp yet anyway because we're too far out. But he'll be ticking over and still learning in the gym. And, you know, once we get the opponent and, and we're like 12 weeks out, 11 weeks out, we'll start camp.
Speaking to him earlier, I remember only 6 months ago, Conor was calling for anyone. You know, he wanted to face Spence there and then 6 months ago. And speaking to him earlier, he was a lot more kind of not necessarily level-headed, but he was almost like he understood how he was being built a bit more. You know, take his time, just get the experience with the world-ranked guys. And he said, you know, somebody like a Mikey Garcia or a Danny Garcia was who he wanted next. Would you be happy for Conor to face somebody like a Mikey Garcia or a Danny Garcia next, amongst the likes of a Maurice Hooker being mentioned or an Adrian Broner, but a Mikey or a Danny in particular, because those are the names which Conor mentioned to me?
Yeah, I think with Conor, you know, he's got that fighter's mentality. He's like Nigel a little bit in that he just fight anybody, you know. And I'm not saying all fighters are like that, but he's one of them fighters who just chucks names at you all the time. Like if you said, "Oh, you're fighting Errol Spence or Terence Crawford next," you go blinding. You know, when's the fight? You know, that's what he's like. Or he'll ask you for the fight. I'll fight him next. You know what I mean? But it's like Eddie's always saying. It's about building the fighter, building the following behind him. You know, getting the TV networks behind him. You know, and he's creating big numbers on the TV at the minute. You know, he's creating one of the biggest numbers on DAZN at the moment. So it's just about, you know, learning in the gym now, getting the right opponents for him at the right time, and then when he's ready to be let off the leash onto the world champions, then we'll let him off the leash. But like Eddie Earn's a great builder of fighters, you know, he knows what he's doing. So I'll leave the opponents wise really to him, and for Charlie to sit down with him and they go through the opponents and they send them to me, you know. And but Eddie's probably already got in mind, or he's already speaking to someone who he's thinking of bringing over. So I'll just really leave that side to them.
Tony, a name which has continued to be linked with Conor is David Avanesyan. A lot of fans saying on British shores would love to see that fight. Spoke to Carl Greaves a week and a half ago, and he said that he knows Conor would take it, but he thinks his team, i.e. yourself, Charlie, as you mentioned, or Eddie, do not think that he's ready for it, do not think that it'd be the right move for Conor. Would you be happy again, just as a trainer, would you be happy to see Conor step in the ring with a David Avanesyan? Do you think he's ready for a David Avanesyan?
I believe that Conor Benn is a better fighter than David Avanesyan, but does Avanesyan put bums on seats in the UK? He don't speak very good English. He ain't really a big name in America. So if I was the promoter like Eddie, he would be thinking he's got to sell this to DAZN in America and around the world. So I think Eddie would rather bring in an American opponent. That's what I think. But you know, if the time comes to it, and there's like a world title on the line, and there's a defence of it that you have to make, then I'd be happy to make it. But at the moment, like European title, it just ain't a big fight. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably the way Eddie's looking at that. So you know, I'll just leave all that up to him anyway.
So moving away from Connor, just get your thoughts on a few other things whilst I've got you. We spoke probably 8 months ago when the rumours, not even 8 months ago, would have been about 3 or 4 months ago rather, when the rumours started to first come out about AJ potentially having a new training set up. Now he's come out about the likelihood is he's going to be bringing in a new trainer, whether it be to work with Rob or else, or to work separately. What are your thoughts on it now? When we spoke, you mentioned him bringing in maybe like a former heavyweight legend just to get advice from them to add it to the camp. But it very much seems now as if it will be going down a different route, just bringing in a new trainer completely. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, I see that he was he had Floyd Mayweather out in Dubai when he was training with him, so maybe he's thinking of bringing him in. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if Floyd comes over at some stage, but yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know the setup, what he's doing. I personally, as knowing him like I do, I don't see him going to America to train. I think he likes being in the UK training, and I do believe that he'll bring somebody over here. I think that he'll probably use someone as a pad man from this country to do his pads with, but I think he will bring in a name, either a name trainer or a name ex-fighter like Floyd Mayweather, to bring that experience into his camp, and you know, that's what I think will happen. But I don't know the setup, what he's going to do. I don't know anything what he's going to do. I only just read the same as all you guys read, but knowing him like I do, I think that's what he'll do.
What does he need, Tony? Obviously, as you mentioned, knowing him as you do, you've worked in his corner before, you've been there with him through numerous fights, and you've seen his rise. What does he actually need when you look at the potential trainers which have been mentioned, the American guys? You know, you spoke to Robert Garcia, Eddie Reynoso, Ronnie Shields, Virgil Hunter, the ones which people have been spoken about at the back end of last year. As you mentioned, he saw Floyd Mayweather in Dubai. I've seen a couple of other trainers being mentioned since. What does he need? How does he need to approach a potential rematch with Alexander Usyk?
You know, I think he's got everything in his armoury to beat Usyk. I think he should have kept Rob on board at some sort of advisory role if he don't want to train with Rob in Sheffield, you know, because I think Rob's good for him mentally, and he listens to him. What does he need to do to beat Usyk? He needs to be ruthless in his approach. You know, he needs to get the right sparring partners in, and he can be ruthless in his approach. He needs to be aggressive. As we were speaking last time, he needs to be like George Foreman-esque, where he walks through punches to land the big shots, you know, and he's got to have that mental ability to do that. And, you know, that's the way to beat Usyk. But listen, let's not take nothing away from Alexander Usyk. Well, he's a great fighter, and he's a very difficult fighter to beat. He's very smart. He's got fast hands, you know, and he's very hard to hit. So it's going to be a difficult night for him. But I believe he has got it in his armoury to beat him. You know, I just believe that the approach that he's got to take is a ruthless approach. But reading about how he's talking and knowing how he is, I believe that he's very motivated and switched on for this fight.
I mean, things at the top of the heavyweight division couldn't be more complicated if we tried to unravel it, Tony, because we saw a couple of days ago, you know, it came out that the Middle East are trying to put together a deal still for Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk to potentially make an undisputed fight, which would obviously mean AJ and Dillian Whyte step aside. Would that be the correct move, in your opinion? Should AJ look to step aside if he can guarantee that maybe he fights the winner of a Fury Usyk so he can get one in the meantime, especially if he's going to have a new trainer to work with? Would that be a wise move on AJ's behalf?
You would have thought so, but you would have thought that, like you say, if he brings in a new trainer and gets to know him. But I know Anthony personally, and I know that emotionally how he'd be thinking. Like that defeat he suffered there was a devastating defeat, and it was a bit like the Ruiz defeat. And he'll be chomping at the bit to get in there, back in there, and reverse that defeat. So I don't know. Obviously, there'll be a lot of money involved for him to step aside, and probably the good move, sensible move, was to step aside and, like you say, get a warm up fight in, so that you're mentally ready for Usyk. But knowing him, he won't want to do that, as a person.
Just two fights I want to get your thoughts on before I let you go, Tony. Feb 5th, I'm sure you'll be tuning in like the rest of us, Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Williams. What's your thoughts?
Great fight, 50-50 fight. Two Brits, both good fighters. It's an evenly matched contest, and I don't know, how that fight's going to pan out, because they're both very skillful fighters. They're both very game fighters. They can both pop a little bit, so it's going to be a tight fight. That as I was saying earlier about John's fight, it's like who comes in on the night in the best condition and whose game plan works the best, and it's all about on the night on that fight. But it's a great fight they've put together there, and obviously I believe the winner will go on to fight Murata. I think Eubank's already ranked #1 anyway in the WBA, so whoever wins that fight will go on to fight for the world title this year. But it's a brilliant matchup.
If I had to push you, who would you edge towards?
Who would I edge towards? Oh, it's difficult, that is. That's a difficult one, really. I think they're both capable of winning the fight, both of them. Because when I've seen Eubank at times, he's looked pure class sometimes, when he lets his hands go in bursts. But I've also seen Williams, devastating sometimes with his power. He had a string of knockouts before he fought Andrade. So you know he can bang. I don't know with that one.
Can't get go into that, Tony.
No, I can't. I don't know with that one. It can be a close decision, this one. A 115, 114 either way. I think that's the way it can go. Honestly, it could be a really close fight, this. I don't see either one of them getting stopped either. So.
All right, I won't push you any more about one, Tony. The final one again. I know you'll be tuning in because of what it could potentially mean for young Conor. Amir Khan and Cal Brook on Feb 19th again. What's your take?
Yeah, obviously it's been a long time coming, this fight, and it's probably, a bit late in both their careers. We'd like to have seen these two fight a few years ago when they was both at their peak, but listen, it's better, late than never, and still an intriguing fight. Everyone's still going to tune into it. It's still an interesting fight, and yeah, if you ask me about that one, I think Kell Brook's just a little bit more fresher than Amir Khan. I think where Amir ain't boxed for a couple of years now, and I just think that Brook could just have a little bit more left in the tank for him.
Do you think there's any possibility of Conor facing the winner of that? I was speaking to him earlier. He said that he FaceTimed Amir Khan, and he said to him he's actually retiring after the Kell Brook fight, but then he's now learnt of this rematch clause, so he's kind of unsure as to what's to happen. But he seemed to be, from Conor's point of view, that if he was to face one of them, it's only Kell Brook who would be up for it. Do you think it's a possibility?
Well, if Kell wins, it definitely could be a possibility, because as I say, I think Kell's is a little bit more fresher than Amir, and he probably still thinks he's got a bit in the tank. He's a great fighter, Kell, and I know him personally. I like Kell Brook. So, if he beats Amir Khan, obviously he made good money for that, and also, he'll still be a big name out there. So that could be a possible stadium fight in the summer, him versus Conor Benn. So that's a possibility. As you say, I think if Amir Khan wins the fight, I don't think there's a possible reason that why he would fight Conor Benn. Like you say, he'd probably be thinking about retirement. So, it's all dependent on whether Kell Brook wins.
Right, Tony, I appreciate your time. I'll leave you to shoot off now because I know I've got to catch up with John as well before heading back myself. So it's been good to catch up with you all today. I appreciate you inviting me down, and thank you for speaking to me in Boxing Social.
You asked about Joe Cordina.
No, I didn't. No, so Joe Cordina, well, I actually have spoken to Joe probably about 4 or 5 days ago, and he said to me he's waiting for a crack at that IBF title, basically.
Yeah.
Do Do you expect something to happen there? Do you expect movement?
Well, I know that Eddie signed the IBF champion, so it's down to Eddie. I mean, he mentioned it before Joe's last fight that there might be a case for a voluntary shot at the champion. So we've just got to wait and see. Joe's just been made mandatory for the European title against the guy who Joe beat last March, funny enough, on Joe's comeback fight. He's the European champion. Don't ask me to pronounce his name. But yes, he's just been made mandatory for that. So we'll just have to see. Hopefully he gets his shot. You know, Eddie seemed to be quite positive about trying to get him the shot. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Joe's in a good position anyway, you know. If he does have to wait a little bit longer, at least he'll have the European title to fight for. And if it does mean waiting till the summer for the world title, but I think the way Eddie was talking, he's hoping to do it in this spring. So let's wait and see.
Right, sorry. Now I'll leave that there. I'll leave you to shoot off because I know you've got other people to see and other things to do. But I appreciate your time and thank you for speaking to me in Boxing Social.
Yeah, thanks for coming down, Andy. Good to see you, mate.